Jumping out of that stage, Dr. Douglas, one of the questions I really would have wanted to ask you is what happened. You lost the election in 2015, but we see a lot of things happening now. Government is continuous is a phrase that they like to use, and somehow it gets, the reality of the meaning, the real meaning and importance of that phrase gets lost in translation, because people see things happening and they think they're just happening on their own, or these are new ideas of the administration that has come into power. These are things that sometimes take a lot of planning, a lot of years, a lot of hard work and vision to put together. On the day you left office, what were some of the projects and initiatives that you left behind that we would have seen come to pass over the last 3 years that people may not necessarily know were projects that were left there by your administration?
Those that have come to fruition. Yes.
And perhaps things that they see that are happening now, which are probably as a result of the vision of your previous administration.
First of all, by now, the matter of the Bastia High School would have been settled. We had already spent close to $12 million to refurbish the Bastia High School. We would have continued to improve it, and while improving it and recognizing that there might have been some limitations, we would have already begun to identify alternatives in terms of maybe another high school. Not abandoning, but another high school, recognizing that there is increasing expansion of the student population in the Bastia area. Today, there's sadness. Sadness on the faces, sadness on the hearts of those of us who would have used that school. It's just recently I saw a video, the trophies, which are symbolic of the athletic prowess and the sporting prowess of that school. Well, of the students of that school are totally discarded and wasted. People have been removing doors, windows, all kinds of things that is movable from an institution, from a building that the government said was contaminated. Yet, even though it's contaminated, according to them, there has never been any sign, any enforcement of security to say to people, do not venture because it's contaminated. And that is why we know that all this was a political farce. All this time, money, and fooling people that they're going to have a school, a new school, in the first year, in the second year. Now we are understanding they're into their fourth year, and it is going to be built on the aquifer, which has been a total outcry of people who are not even resident in St. Kitts. But hearing that the government of the day is about to build a school on an aquifer of the Bastia area, it is totally unbelievable, especially considering all that has been gone into preserving our water supply in the Bastia area here in St. Kitts-Nevis. This is not an easy matter. I think we would have seen by now definitely the completion of the second pier. The second cruise pier was to facilitate the growth and expansion in tourism, cruise tourism, after we had been so successful in reviving the tourist industry. Today, we are still waiting for that second cruise pier to be built. And more so, people are alarmed. I mean, when I discuss this with people, they can't believe that the Minister of Works, the minister who is responsible for the Port Authority, has in fact, just before the start of this project, building of a second pier, has actually registered a company to buy and supply building materials to the government and to private entities in his own name, just before the start of this project. And this is a most blatant conflict of interest. We would have seen the completion of several hotel projects, condo hotel, villa projects that we had started. Look at the state, up to the day of the Pirate's Nest. Still incomplete, far from being completed, far from being occupied, far from being operationalized. And it is giving the country a very bad name because persons have invested, and by now their units should have been made available to them. Look at what is happening with regard to the Embassy Suites project down at Pelican Bay, still in a state of incompleteness, but which would have been by now close to completion and operationalized for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts-Nevis. What is happening here, really, is that opportunities for employment provided during the operationalization of these various hotels, those opportunities have disappeared because today they remain closed and in a state of unfinished because of the incompetence of the government when they shut down the CBI program for almost 6 months when they took office back in 2015. The treatment center that was built, it is now just being operationalized 3 years after going into a 4th year. And even it is just being done, there is still very many unsettled business with regard to that particular facility. So who benefits? It's built, but sat languishing for almost 3 years without use. That would have already been fully on stream if the Labour government was still there. Look at the state of the hospital. Look at the state of the hospital. We would not only have improved the situation there, but by now, I am certain that a brand new hospital would have been under construction. And all this nonsense about sending people to a monkey farm to take MRI and so forth, this definitely would not have been the case because we know that we had already made arrangements for diagnostic procedures to be done properly, using proper equipment, not equipment that is used for monkeys, but equipment that would have been used for human beings. And so these are some of the difficulties that we are having because the government of the day goes into office. It doesn't understand its elbow from what, and there we are, languishing, worse off rather than being better off as was being promised. Look at the housing stock. Not only have they distributed the houses that we already built, but look at what they're doing. The houses are smaller, but cost more. They said that they would be large and cost less. They are smaller and cost more. And how many persons now have been threatened to lose their homes because of difficulties? They can't find work. They have been dismissed from government jobs. They have been dismissed from the private sector jobs that they hold because of the downturn in the economy since the Labour administration left office. These are just some of the things that I believe would have taken place, taken shape, and would have been brought on stream for the benefit of the people of St. Kitts and Nevis.
And so that would have been some of also what you left in place, because you spoke about things like the day treatment center and so on and so forth. I know you're not going to disclose too much now because an election approaches, and certainly your party has visions for what it would like to either continue, resume, or new initiatives you'd like to bring on stream. Are there any of them? And at the same time, I know politicians don't like to give politicians other ideas to use for themselves. But is there anything you can share in a very general sense about what Kittitians and divisions and those from the Caribbean community who have made here their home can expect should your party return to power?
We would definitely have provided a continuing environment for growth and expansion in the economy and for the advancement and the development of our people. People would not have been worse off. The cost of living would have been under proper control. The government of the day says it has taken the VAT from food, but every single consumer and shopper in this country is telling you that the cost of living is much higher on these same basic food items that the government says it has removed the VAT from. Because there's really no policing. There's total inefficiency in the pursuit of government policies. And that's part of the problem. The government has become so unstable, so much full of itself, trying to, one, enrich themselves quickly before they leave office, or fighting to see who is going to be the next leader, that they do not have time to concentrate on developing proper policies that will pursue the development and the improvement in the quality of life of our human beings here. This is part of the problem. And so we have this continuing problem. We need to make sure that we understand this is not the way to run a country. We believe very firmly that if we were there, policies with regard to health care would have been different. I mentioned that a new hospital would have been built. We still feel very strongly that the opportunity to improve our medical and health services, that they should be pursued vigorously, and we will do that vigorously. Education opportunities. It is wrong for parents having to make a decision whether to forego their meals or to have their children go on to CFBC to complete or to start their tertiary level education. It's wrong. Parents should not be given those choices today. Children were being assisted by government programs to encourage them to go on to the CFBC rather than trying to find work in an environment where work is not available because they are less marketable than others who would have been better qualified. So this is not right. The incentives that were being provided should already be restored. You can't withdraw these things without giving them back. You have to give them back. And Labour definitely in government would give back these incentives for our children who are students, whether at the secondary level or at the primary level. And giving the laptop computers back to our students in high school. We were not only going to do it for all in high school, but we were going to take it down to the 6th grade as well into the primary school. This needs to be done. Labour will do that almost immediately on taking office. I want to make it clear that there are certain matters regarding our future development as a democracy. We believe the time has come for us to look at how we govern ourselves. There is need for reform, constitutional reform. There is need for reform, but it has to be after consultation with the people. You can't just simply bring a piece of legislation into a parliament and say that is the basis on which we are going to go forward. There's no discussion with our people. There's no consultation. Everything cannot be done within the realm of just party political advancement. The welfare of our people has to be taken into consideration. People are not robots. People are human beings. They have a soul, they have a mind, they have hearts, they have brains, they have to be consulted because they have their own ideas that they would want to share as we speak about moving from one level or one state of our democracy to another. So these are some of the things that Labour would definitely do. As a party, I believe that there is much that has to be done. I have to begin to transition into a new leadership. That will take place. The policies of the party are such that that has been entrenched. But I believe more fundamentally in looking at where we go from here. We have to transition the country from this generation of leadership to a next. Transitional leadership is important, not only within the realm of the party, but also in the country. We have to invite and embrace all to participate in moving our country to the next level. It cannot be right, and it will not serve us any good if, again, only one set of people, because of their political affiliation, are allowed to participate. Not only participate in terms of receiving jobs, etc., but participate in terms of making a contribution in determining our future and in developing our country. Transitional leadership from one to the next, one state to the next, is critical. And that is what I think we need to look at as we plan to move into the next cycle of political elections. One has to think of transitional leadership. Transitioning the country from its present state to a different level, which this government, this coalition government, has failed in determining the path to that new direction that we need to go.
A burning question a lot of people may have, because prior to the 2015 election, you would have spoken about this transition in the leadership of your party, and you alluded to, although you may not have explicitly said, that your time was drawing to a close. Had you won the government in 2015, do you think you would have been running in the next election?
Definitely not.
No?
Definitely not.
Why was
In
it?
fact,
Go ahead.
in fact, I want to say that if we did not have the fallout within the leadership of the party before the 2015 election, there's no knowing if I would have even led the party into that election, because we had begun the exercise of transition. We had brought in Professor Neville Duncan out of Jamaica in March of 2012 to start the process of transitioning. Strange enough, the very person who in the end broke with the party and with the government, he refused to participate in those consultations with Professor Neville Duncan. And this is because it was clear to us that he never wanted a smooth transition along the lines of the party constitution. You don't walk into a prime minister's office and demand that you be made the prime minister. You don't do those things. A prime minister has a mandate from the people, and he should be allowed to serve his mandate, even though you have your ideas. He should be allowed to serve out the terms of his mandate. And he was told that. You can't just do that. And I am here now because of those difficulties that were experienced since 2012. In 2012, in good stead, the party began the exercise of transition. Began the exercise. Persons did not want to go through that particular exercise and wanted a government to be handed to them on a platter when they had not even proven themselves to be worthy of carrying it with the support of the people of the party. And so I am saying to you that if I had won the last elections in 2015, I don't think I would have been leading the party into these elections that are coming.
So it's about leaving not just your party, but the country in a stable state.
Of course. It is not just the party. Of course, the party has to be properly transitioned. But it's the country. It's where we were. It is where we were. And I believe that the country was stable, on a stable growth path, had basically gotten rid of the challenges of high debt, unemployment. We were at the point of tackling the serious social problems of crime. We were making sure that the next generation of students coming out of CFBC would have been automatically transitioned into universities abroad if that was their wish. People who wanted skills, short-term training in skills, 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, that would have been provided by the government. There was enough money to do that. It is the state that the country was in, why I was confident that we were on the right path and that my time of service would have come to an end and I would have moved on and the country would have moved on without me.
And what advice then do you have for younger persons who perhaps, and you alluded to it, maybe women who have not found their place yet, but you are encouraging them to do so? What do you say to young persons who want to enter politics, who want to serve their country, who want to give back to the communities who have made them who they are? What do you say to them?
I would want to say firstly that you do not offer yourself for this kind of service unless you understand it is sacrificial. You're not going to be able to go in and come out with your pockets full. That's not what it is. You will end up in jail. I want to settle that to them. And even if you think that you would have gotten away with it, it's only a matter of time. That whatever you might have done wrong, it will eventually come to fruition. So you have to go in with an attitude of service and a responsible attitude. You have to always remember that there is someone else who is in need and not you alone in need. And you must not fill your needs first and leave the man's needs there. Understand that politics, service in government, service in country is what it is. It is service. It's not serving yourself and your interest. It is serving the interests of other people. So you have to be, in my opinion, you have to understand, first of all, what service is. Because if you haven't come to terms with that and thinking that you're going to go into government because it's a quick way to get rich, you're going to get into trouble. It doesn't happen like that. It does not happen like that. Second thing, you have to understand that people are educated. And you cannot fool people. The only way, in my opinion, to form a permanent relationship with people, which is critical as a politician, is to genuinely understand their needs. How would you understand the needs of people if you don't interact with them? If you don't visit them in their natural environment, which is their homes? How would you ever appreciate how people live if you yourself have never seen how they live? They don't show you how they live on a television. They don't show you how they live on a WhatsApp. You have to visit people. You have to allow yourself to become endeared to people. And people would love you for that. They will not forget you. They will walk with you. They will march with you. You have to cry with them. You have to be jubilant with them. You have to share their joys, but you have to share their pains. Serving a country in this field of politics and government is serving, real serving, and not wanting anything in return. Third thing, this habit of thinking that you can buy people's votes. It may be a quick fix, but that's not the way to serve the interests of people, by buying their support. Because when you can't buy anymore, then where are you? Where's the relationship? If the relationship has been built on simply meeting monetary demands and financial needs, when you do not have it, what happens? I would advise, fourthly, that people train themselves properly to enter this life of service as politicians and in government. Understand what it takes. Think very clearly and closely and deeply before you venture. Fifthly, you better be organized. If you are not organized, and if you are not appreciating the importance of public relations and proper communications, you're not going to make it. I'll stop here for now. I think I will do so as a professor of politics next time around.
Thank you so much for inviting me into your home today and having this conversation with me. I just want to give you 30 seconds. If all people ever hear of you is the next 30 seconds, what do you want them to know about Denzel Douglas?
Denzel Douglas has been a humble person from beginning. Work hard. Remember that he is a God-given soul and has endeared himself to people whom he serves, and is always willing to serve in any capacity.
Thank you very much. And we thank you for tuning in and watching this once-in-a-lifetime interview. I don't think there's been any other quite like this with Dr. Denzel Douglas, certainly in his own home here where he grew up in St. Paul. It's been a pleasure sitting with you this afternoon. Thanks.